A Spartan man was a soldier his entire life. Even when he wasn't fighting in battle, he was training to be ready for any emergency. Women were also expected to be strong and able to defend themselves. So how did Sparta raise warriors from birth? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be learning about how Sparta raised warriors from birth. Make sure to watch till the end to find out what kind of training even babies had to go through. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an amazing video. Now let's get started. When a baby boy was born in Sparta, he would stay with his mother for only the first month of his life. After that, he would be sent to live with the state. The father would carry the baby to the agoge, or the council of elders, where the members would inspect him to make sure that he was healthy and strong. This inspection was a crucial part of the process because if a child was not deemed worthy, they would be left out in the open to die. Only the strongest and most capable would be allowed to live. Once the baby was accepted by the community, he would then be given over to a group of male nurses who were responsible for taking care of him until he reached the age of 7. These nurses were tasked with not just feeding and clothing the boys, but also with teaching them the ways of Sparta. From the moment they could walk, the boys were taught the importance of discipline, obedience, and courage. They were drilled in the basics of combat and made to practice running, jumping, and throwing. Any sign of weakness or fear was met with harsh punishment, which often included beatings. The goal was to create soldiers who were strong, brave, and able to withstand any hardship. At the age of 7, boys were sent to live together in communal barracks. Here they lived, ate, and slept with other boys their own age. They were no longer under the supervision of nurses, but instead were in the charge of older boys who were responsible for maintaining order and discipline within the group. At this age, they were taught more advanced combat skills such as sword fighting and spear throwing. They were also encouraged to work together as a team and to develop a sense of camaraderie that would help them in battle. They were also taught the art of stealth and espionage. They were made to sneak around the barracks at night and spy on each other, and they were rewarded for being able to surprise their comrades. Spartan boys were taught to be frugal and to make do with what they had. They were given only one cloak, one blanket, and one pair of sandals, and they were expected to make do with these possessions. They were forbidden from owning anything else, and any items that they were given for special occasions had to be returned after the event. This was to ensure that they did not become attached to material possessions and that they were not corrupted by wealth. Another aspect of Spartan education was the use of fear as a motivator. Boys were regularly subjected to punishments that instilled fear in them. These punishments ranged from beatings to being locked up in a small room for days. The aim of these punishments was not to humiliate or degrade the boys, but to motivate them to improve and to become better soldiers. Spartans believed that fear was an effective way to keep people in check, and it was an important part of their military training. At the age of 12, the boys underwent a ritual known as paideia. During this ceremony, they were stripped naked and had their heads shaved. They were then given a red cloak and a wooden sword and were sent into the forest to fend for themselves. They were left to survive on their own and were not allowed to return to the barracks until they had managed to kill a wild animal and bring its pelt back with them. This was a test of their hunting skills, but it was also a test of their character. It was a way of seeing whether they were able to face their fears and overcome the challenges that were placed before them. When the boys returned to the barracks, they were given a new set of clothes and weapons. They were now considered to be young men and were expected to behave accordingly. They were given more responsibilities and were expected to take charge of younger boys. They were also involved in more advanced military training, which included mock battles and other combat simulations. Spartan women were considered to be the property of the state and were expected to bear children to ensure the continuation of the Spartan race. However, they were also expected to be strong and independent. Unlike women in other societies, Spartan women were not confined to the home and were allowed to participate in many activities that were normally reserved for men. They were expected to be physically fit and were trained in gymnastics, javelin throwing, and other sports. They were also educated and were well versed in music, poetry, and medicine. Spartan women were also allowed to own property and to manage it in their own name. They could buy and sell property and were able to inherit from their parents. This was in stark contrast to the rest of Greece, where women were considered to be the property of their fathers or husbands and had no rights. As the young men approached the age of 20, they entered the final stage of their training. They were paired up with older, more experienced soldiers who acted as their mentors. These soldiers were responsible for teaching them the finer points of warfare and for ensuring that they were ready to defend Sparta when the time came. At this age, they were also involved in military operations outside of Sparta, and they were given real weapons and armor to use in battle. The agoge lasted until the Spartan male was 30 years old. At this point, he was considered to be a full-fledged soldier and was expected to serve in the military for the rest of his life. Even when he was not on active duty, he was expected to be prepared to fight at a moment's notice. Spartan men continued to train and prepare for battle throughout their lives. They participated in military exercises and drills, and they were expected to be in top physical condition at all times. They were forbidden from getting married until they reached the age of 30, as the state did not want to distract them from their duty with family obligations. Once they were allowed to marry, however, they were expected to produce as many children as possible. The more children a Spartan man had, the more glory he brought to his family. Spartan women were also expected to continue their training throughout their lives. They were required to participate in athletic competitions and to maintain their physical fitness. They were also expected to be knowledgeable in all areas of Spartan life and to be able to assist their husbands in managing their household. If a Spartan man showed cowardice or weakness in battle, he was severely punished. He would be stripped of his citizenship and banished from Sparta. In extreme cases, he might even be put to death. The Spartans believed that cowardice was the worst quality a soldier could have, and they took steps to ensure that their soldiers were always brave in the face of danger. Spartan women were also expected to be brave and strong. If a Spartan woman was deemed to be too weak or too fearful, she could be banished from Sparta. While this was less likely to happen than with men, it was still a possibility. The Spartans believed that their women should be able to defend themselves and their families if necessary, and they did not tolerate weakness or cowardice. Now you know how Sparta raised warriors from birth. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an amazing video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.